Hey there, I'm Nathaniel Brooks, 27 years old. And if you've scrolled through social media, you might have seen me standing in these lush rolling fields of Durango, Colorado, or sitting at my grandparents' weathered wooden table, sharing heartfelt stories about my family, my mom, my grandparents, and the simple life we've built. Millions call me the country storyteller, drawn to the warmth of these moments. But my life wasn't always filled with these golden days and hearty laughter you see in my videos. My story begins in a very different place, a place of shattered dreams and broken memories. A place I once called home, but now exists only in fragments of my heart. Let me take you back to where it all started, to a time when the world felt both beautiful and fragile. I was born in Fort Collins, Colorado, in a sprawling house where the rich, earthy scent of my father's coffee factory seeped into every corner of our lives. My dad, Stephen Brooks, was a towering man, always dressed in a crisp suit, even at the breakfast table. His voice warm yet commanding, like a steady hand guiding a ship. He owned one of the largest coffee production factories in the region, and his presence filled our home with a sense of pride and stability. My mom, Miranda, was the heart of our family, a gentle woman with warm brown eyes that sparkled like the morning dew, and a smile that could chase away any storm. She was a true homemaker, turning our house into a haven of love and warmth. I can still picture those afternoons when golden sunlight poured through the kitchen window, painting the room in soft hues. Mom would stand at the counter, kneading dough for her famous oatmeal cookies, humming an old folk song, her voice soft and melodic. I was just a 5-year-old boy, perched on a high stool, sneaking a finger into the dough, giggling when she'd catch me and playfully swat my hand, her eyes twinkling with mock sternness. Those moments felt like a perfect painting, frozen in time. My dad taught me how to throw a baseball in our sprawling backyard, his large hands guiding mine to grip the bat just right. He'd laugh, a deep, hearty sound, whenever I sent the ball careening into the bushes, ruffling my hair and calling me his little champ. On weekends, we'd pile into the car and drive to the mountains for camping trips. I can still feel the cool night air, hear the crackle of the campfire as Mom wove fairy tales about brave knights and magical forests, her voice wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Dad would strum his guitar, the chords blending with the rustling leaves, while I lay on the grass, gazing at the twinkling stars, believing those moments would last forever. Life felt like a dream, one I never wanted to wake from, but forever is a lie meant for children's hearts. By the time I was 10, I could sense the air in our house growing heavier, like a storm brewing on the horizon. Mom started crying more often, usually late at night, when she thought I was asleep. I'd lie in bed, hearing her muffled sobs through the closed living room door, her voice choked with pain. Dad was away more, claiming the factory was expanding, but I noticed the way he left with a suitcase in hand, a faint scent of unfamiliar cologne trailing behind him. I began picking up on small, unsettling details. The way Mom's hands gripped the edge of the kitchen table when Dad took a phone call, her knuckles white as if holding back a flood of emotions. The way her warm brown eyes followed him, searching for something she'd lost. One sleepless night, the phone rang in the living room, and I crept out of bed, my heart pounding as I hid behind the wall. Dad's voice was low, almost tender, unlike how he spoke to Mom. "Don't worry, I'll figure it out," he whispered. "Just a few more months, and I'll sort everything out." The words didn't make sense to my young mind, but they cut deep, like a small knife slicing into my heart. I knew, even as a child, that Dad was betraying Mom, that the love they once shared was slipping away. Mom never spoke of it to me, but I saw her fading, her eyes red and teary, her smile a rare guest. I tried to cheer her up, bringing home drawings from school, telling her stories about my day, but she'd only hug me tightly, whispering, "You're my light, Nathaniel." Her voice trembled, and I wanted to scream at Dad, to demand why he was hurting her, but fear held me back, fear of his anger, fear of her tears, fear that our family would shatter completely. I was a child, powerless against the storm brewing around me. When I was 11, the storm finally broke. The arguments erupted like thunder, shaking the walls of our once happy home. One night, I heard Mom's voice, raw and desperate, echoing from their bedroom. "You think I don't know, Stephen? You think I'm blind?" Dad's response was cold, cutting. "Miranda, don't make a big deal out of this. I'm doing everything for this family." I curled up under my blanket, hands clamped over my ears, but their words pierced through, sharp as knives. I couldn't understand how Dad could lie so blatantly, how he could dismiss her pain. The divorce trial was a nightmare, a blur of adult voices arguing over me as if I were a piece of property. I sat in the courtroom, small and helpless, watching Dad's expensive lawyers paint Mom as unfit, claiming she lacked the financial means to raise me. Mom sat across the room, her hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the floor, silent as a statue. I wanted to run to her, to hug her, to scream that I didn't care about money, I just needed her. But I wasn't allowed to speak, my voice trapped in a world that didn't listen to children. The court ruled in Dad's favor, granting him custody. Mom was allowed visitation, but she couldn't stay in Fort Collins. She packed a few suitcases and moved hundreds of miles away to Durango, Colorado, to live with my grandparents, where she'd grown up. The day she left, I stood on the porch, watching her climb into her old car. She turned back, her warm brown eyes glistening with tears, and hugged me so tightly, I could feel her heart breaking. "I'll always be there when you need me, Nathaniel," she said, her voice trembling. "Anytime, okay?" I nodded, but inside I wanted to scream that I needed her right now, that I couldn't bear to let her go. As her car disappeared down the street, taking her gentle smile with it, our big house in Fort Collins felt like a hollow shell, cold and empty, echoing with the absence of her warmth. Just a few months after Mom left, the front door of our house opened to a stranger. Brianna walked in, dragging 2 oversized suitcases, her glossy blonde hair catching the light, her smile unreadable. Dad introduced her as if it were the most natural thing. "Nathaniel, this is Brianna, she's going to live with us." I stood there, 11 years old, clutching the hem of my shirt, trying to process why Dad would bring another woman into our home when Mom's absence still burned like an open wound. Less than a month later, at dinner, Dad's voice brimmed with excitement, as if announcing a grand achievement. "Brianna's pregnant. Nathaniel, you're going to have a little brother." I nearly choked on my mashed potatoes, the taste turning bitter in my mouth. Brianna smiled, her hand resting on her belly. But that smile wasn't for Mitt, was for Dad, for the future they were building, one that didn't include me. Soon, Dad started calling her darling in front of me, and then he demanded I call her Mum. "She's family now," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The word Mom was sacred to me, tied to memories of my mother's warm hugs and soft folk songs. I couldn't give it to a stranger. Every time I called her Brianna, Dad shot me a cold look, as if I were the one betraying him. Brianna quickly claimed the house as her own, saddling me with endless chores, washing dishes, mopping floors, folding laundry because she was pregnant and needed rest. I didn't complain, not out of willingness, but out of fear. Dad had changed. He was no longer the man who laughed with me in the backyard. He became distant, nodding along when Brianna complained about my laziness or disrespect. Once, when I accidentally spilled juice on a rug she'd bought, she screamed, "Do you know how expensive this was?" Dad stood there, silent, his eyes telling me I was a failure. The pressure grew heavier. I woke at 5 a.m. to make Brianna's breakfast, ran to the store for her cravings: ice cream, pickles, anything she demanded. If I folded a napkin wrong or forgot a task, she'd scold me in front of Dad, her voice sweet but sharp. "He's ungrateful, Stephen. He needs to learn." Dad would nod, then turn to me. "If you don't shape up, I'll send you to a reform boarding school." The threat of boarding school loomed like a prison, and I knew he meant it. Brianna's punishments weren't always loud. Sometimes, they were silent cold glares when I entered a room. Whispers to Dad about how I was too much like his mother, sluggish, useless. I overheard her once, and my heart shattered. I wasn't useless. I just wanted my mum, the old house, the days when I didn't live in fear. At night, I hid in my closet, clutching the phone, whispering to Mom, "I miss you." Her gentle voice was my lifeline. "I'm here, Nathaniel. Come to me any time." But I couldn't. She and my grandparents had little money, and I didn't want to burden them. I was breaking, but I refused to let them see it. When I turned 18, graduation day was my light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. I stood among my classmates, holding my diploma, but felt none of their joy. They hugged their parents, beaming, while I stood alone, glancing at Dad and Brianna, clapping half-heartedly in the corner, Ashton engrossed in his phone. I'd learned not to expect anything from them. That night, at 3 a.m., the house silent, I made my decision. I packed an old backpack with a few clothes, a notebook filled with my dreams, and a faded photo of me and Mum from happier days, her smile bright beside me. I didn't leave a note. Dad called me a burden. Brianna, the extra kid. They didn't deserve a goodbye. I stepped outside, breathing Fort Collins' icy air. feeling alive for the first time in years. The 6-hour bus ride to Durango was a journey to freedom. I sat by the window, watching mountains and fields blur past, the vast Colorado sky beckoning me forward. At the Durango station, Mom stood waiting, her small frame wrapped in an old jacket. She ran to me, enveloping me in a tight hug, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Nathaniel, you're home," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. I hugged her back, feeling her familiar warmth, and for the first time in years, I cried openly. No need to hide. My grandparents' house in Durango was small, with a patchy tiled roof and peeling paint, but it was a sanctuary. Grandpa Albert, with his silver hair and kind smile, patted my shoulder. "Welcome home, kid." Grandma Mabel, petite and sprightly, pressed a plate of freshly baked cookies into my hands, scolding playfully, "Eat, you're too skinny." We ate simple meals, vegetable soup, homemade bread, occasional stewed meat when they could afford it, but every meal was filled with laughter. Grandpa's stories of the old days, and Grandma's teasing when he sneaked extra cookies. I slept on a fold-out bed in the living room, but I'd never slept better, wrapped in the love I'd lost in Fort Collins. I couldn't rely on Mom and my grandparents forever. They lived on a modest pension and garden vegetable sales. I wanted to contribute, to prove I wasn't the extra kid. Brianna called me. One afternoon, sitting on the porch with Mom, watching the Durango fields sway in the breeze, an idea struck. "Mom, I want to make videos," I said. "About life here, about you, Grandma, and Grandpa, simple, real things." She brushed my hair back, smiling softly. "If that's what you want, go for it, Nathaniel. Do it for your joy." I knew I was doing it for her too, to show the world the strong, gentle woman who'd sacrificed everything for me. I created a YouTube channel, The Simple Side, using an old phone and self-taught editing skills. I filmed Mom planting tomatoes, her hands deft in the soil, Grandma Mabel picking lettuce, chuckling at a passing breeze, Grandpa Albert hammering nails into a fence, his stories filling the air. The first videos were rough, poor lighting, crackling audio, barely a dozen views from old-school friends. I took a job at a local grocery store, working long hours at the counter to help with bills, electricity, internet, roof repairs. Money was tight, and some nights, rain leaked through the roof, soaking the floor. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was chasing a pipe dream. But Mom and Grandma were my anchors. "Take it slow, Nathaniel," Mom would say, squeezing my hand. "As long as you're true to yourself," Grandma added, her voice playful. "Keep making those videos. Maybe one day, the world will watch." I laughed, but deep down, I started to believe I'd find my path in these fields. Then TikTok came like a fresh breeze through Durango's fields. Friends in town talked about short videos spreading like wildfire. So I tried it, filming ordinary moments with my old phone, Mom stirring a pot of traditional bean soup, her hands steady and loving, Grandma Mabel giggling when a butterfly landed on her nose, Grandpa Albert sharing tales of his youth under the sunset's glow. I posted them with simple captions. Country life, the little things that make happiness. I never imagined those moments held such power. One morning my phone buzzed with notifications. A video, a $5 meal that tastes like a feast, had gone viral overnight. It showed Mom cooking mashed potatoes, boiled beans, and fried chicken all for $5. Her bright smile lit up the screen as she shared how she stretched every penny. And I captioned it. "Happiness doesn't have to be expensive." The video exploded thousands, then tens of thousands of shares. Comments flooded in. "Your mom is amazing. This makes me want to move to the countryside. Keep making more." I was stunned as views climbed to millions. TikTok fans flocked to The Simple Side on YouTube, boosting old videos of Mom gardening and Grandma baking. Subscribers soared from hundreds to tens of thousands. Messages poured in from viewers worldwide, saying my videos reminded them of home, of their mums, of simpler days. A community grew, not just for the countryside scenes, but for the stories of family, gratitude, and joy in the little things. I spent evenings at the kitchen table, tinkering with edits, improving lighting and sound. Still working at the store, but now with a fire in my heart. Mom and Grandma became reluctant stars. Grandma teased, "Why film this old lady?" But she'd stand proudly in front of the camera, sharing stories or picking vegetables, as if she knew I was building something meaningful. By 25, The Simple Side was thriving. Income from TikTok and YouTube grew, first hundreds, then thousands. A food company offered to sponsor my videos, followed by a kitchenware brand. Sponsorships poured in, and one day, I checked my bank account, hardly believing the balance. Over $1 million. I, Nathaniel Brooks, once called the extra kid, stood on my own, thanks to videos about my mom in Durango's fields. The first thing I did was fix our house. No more leaky roof. Fresh paint on the walls, new windows, letting in golden light. I bought Mom a reliable car for market trips, Grandpa a comfy armchair for reading, and Grandma a garden bursting with her favorite flowers, roses, daisies, and lavender. I didn't post about these purchases. I just kept sharing Mom cooking new dishes, Grandma telling jokes, Grandpa teaching me to mend fences. The values they taught me, family, gratitude, perseverance, were what I wanted to spread. Sitting on the porch under moonlight, the fields shimmering, my heart swelled with gratitude. I'd come from a scared boy in Fort Collins to a man who found meaning in the simple things. Surrounded by love I thought I'd lost forever. One autumn afternoon, as golden leaves fell across Durango's fields, I was helping Mom weed the garden when a car horn broke the quiet. A sleek black sedan parked at the gate, and a gaunt figure stepped out. Dad, Stephen Brooks, his once pristine suit now wrinkled, his hair graying. My heart sank, old wounds stirring. He approached, his polished shoes caked with dust. "Nathaniel," he called, his voice weathered. "You look healthy." I didn't respond, just stared, gripping the hoe tightly, sweat trickling down my forehead. Mom stood behind me, her hands pausing in the weeds, her eyes tense but gentle. "Come inside, Stephen," she said, calm but distant. I wanted to protest, but I followed her lead into our small living room, where Grandpa's armchair and the scent of cookies created a stark contrast to Dad's presence. He sat, hands clasped, eyes scanning our humble home. "You've done well, Nathaniel," he said awkwardly. "I've seen your videos. Millions of followers. Right, you're famous." His words felt hollow, and unease rose in my chest. He'd never cared when I needed him most. "Why now? What do you want?" I asked bluntly. He took a deep breath, his sunken eyes revealing exhaustion. "The company's on the verge of bankruptcy. I need your help, Nathaniel. Invest, and I'll transfer ownership to you." Memories flooded back, nights hiding in the closet, calling Mum in tears, Brianna's cruel words, Dad's cold silence when I begged for protection. "I begged you to save me as a kid," I said, my voice icy. "You refused." Mom's hand rested on my shoulder, lending me strength. Dad stiffened, his face flushing. "You dare speak to me like that? I'm your father. I raised you, gave you everything." His voice hissed with old authority, but I was no longer the frightened boy. "You gave me a house, not a family," I replied. "You chose Brianna, Ashton, your company. I survived without you, and now you'll have to do the same." He trembled, cursing, "You'll regret this. Just a kid making silly videos," and stormed out, the door slamming. I stood, heart pounding, not from fear, but from freedom. I'd chosen a different path. A year later, a news headline caught my eye. "Fort Collins coffee entrepreneur hits rock bottom." The article showed Dad, no longer the powerful man in a suit, but a weary figure in a tattered coat, working as a laborer. Brianna had left with another man, taking what little money remained. Ashton, now 14, lived with an aunt, spending recklessly. Dad was scraping by in a rented room. I felt a pang, not pity, but sorrow for a man who'd lost everything. Not just money, but what mattered most. I showed Mom the article, unsure what to do. She skimmed it, her eyes distant. "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, Nathaniel," she said. "Helping, even a little, without letting him hurt you again, that's strength." Her words eased the weight in my heart. After sleepless nights, I contacted a Fort Collins charity, anonymously funding a nursing home placement for Dad. Hot meals, a clean bed, a roof. I didn't want to see him or let him know it was me. It wasn't full forgiveness, but a way to let go, for my own peace. Then, during a visit with my daughter, Lily, I found a letter slipped into my bag. In Dad's shaky handwriting, it read, "I'm proud of you, Nathaniel. I'm sorry I lost you, your mom, everything. You've become the man I never was." That night, he jumped from the nursing home roof, clutching a copy of the letter. At his funeral, under a gray Fort Collins sky, I read parts of his letter. "Live happily with your wife and daughter." Ashton, now a lanky teen, hugged me, promising to change. I drove home to Durango, Mom's words echoing, "You did the right thing, Nathaniel. You proved you're different." Today, in Durango, life blooms like the wildflowers in Grandma's garden. I married Alina, a literature teacher with curly brown hair and a smile that lights up my world. She loves me for me, not my social media fame, for how I care for mom and laugh at grandma's teasing. Our daughter, Lily, with mom's brown eyes and Elena's radiant smile, is our joy. The simple side has grown, sharing not just country life, but stories of forgiveness and healing, reaching millions. Ashton visits, learning to fix fences with Grandpa Albert and cook with mom, slowly becoming family. I keep dad's letter, not with resentment, but gratitude for the lessons it taught me. Standing in these Durango fields, Lily on my shoulders, the breeze carrying the scent of distant coffee, I know home isn't a place, it's love, perseverance, and letting go of the past. I've come full circle, from a broken boy in Fort Collins, to a man who found peace in the simple things, surrounded by those who matter most. Thank you for listening to my story. It's not just mine, it's about finding light in the darkest moments. If it moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share. In the comments, tell me what's your simple side. What keeps you going? Let's keep spreading love, gratitude, and stories that matter. See you in the next one, from the fields of Durango.